third episode of the B Movie Club. For those of you joining us for the first time, this is kind of like a book club, but it's movies. and not movies in the theater right now, obviously, but movies that have come out in the past, more fun movies. So I've said it before, we're not going to be reviewing any Merchant Ivory, any Nicholas Sparks, no Jane Austen. Uh, we will be doing primarily comedies, action films, horror movies, whatever we want to do. Things that are fun, that are enjoyable to watch. If it takes a lot out of you to watch it, we probably won't be discussing it. So early in the week, I will tell you what movie we're going to be discussing, and if you want, you can watch that movie, and then you can tweet me at KD9575. I'm also on Facebook. You can also reach me through YouTube. In fact, you can subscribe to the B Movie Club through my channel, KD9575. This is episode 3. We're going to be discussing 1984's C.H.U.D. If you have not seen this before, it is one of my favorites. C.H.U.D stands for Cannibalistic Humanoid Underground Dwellers. In this story, homeless people are disappearing all over New York City, and people are starting to ask questions. It turns out there are these green monster-looking creatures that live in the tunnels and in the sewers underneath the city, and they're grabbing people. And they start grabbing just regular people, not homeless people as well. So they're grabbing everybody. They discover that there is something turning the homeless people into these monsters. So there you have it. I don't want to spoil it. It stars Daniel Stern, who you may remember from City Slickers, Diner, Home Alone. Also stars John Hurd, who's also in Home Alone. He plays Macaulay Culkin's dad, and he's in Big. He plays Tom Hanks' rival for Elizabeth Perkins' affection in that movie. John Hurd, not John Hurt or William Hurt. John Hurd, like I heard what you said. And it was directed by Douglas Cheek, who had only done documentaries up to that point, and I think pretty much since. This was his last foray into regular mainstream movies. It's funny because John Hurd and Daniel Stern really were not big fans of the script. For some reason, they agreed to do it, but throughout the thing, they were basically rewriting it as they went, improvising. Daniel Stern would show up literally the day of the shoot with new dialogue and new lines, and didn't tell the directors or the producers or even the original writer who was on hand. I watched the DVD commentary this last week, and if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it because they're all discussing their issues with the show, how they were paid scale, which evidently isn't very much, and how they were supposed to get paid more money and they never did. Halfway through the commentary, they were like, well, why are we doing this? And they were about to leave. It is high comedy, let me tell you. Originally, the Chuds were just supposed to be kind of crazed homeless people, but evidently the producer wasn't a big fan of that, so somehow they became like these green rubbery creatures with glowing eyes. So, good times. How the toxic waste turned the people into these monsters, I'm not too sure. I mean, there's a scene where the homeless people the C.H.U.D people are basically rolling around in the toxic waste. I figure even if you're homeless, you're probably going to avoid the glowing stuff down in the sewers. Maybe that's just me. So this movie was not a big hit in the theaters. Shocking, I know. And they actually made a sequel of this a few years later, but it has nothing to do with the original. And in fact, the producers uh, basically insisted that their names be taken off the sequel, because the first one was such highbrow entertainment, right? So they said that the sequel was a farce. Yeah. Okay. Good times. Um, anyway, Rotten Tomatoes gave this movie 18% rotten, which I think is a travesty. It's at least 19 or 20. You know, um, I really enjoyed it. I thought it had its scary moments. Uh, I thought the story was actually pretty good, although there really isn't much of a resolution at the end. Spoiler alert. Um, it's also one of the first appearances of John Goodman. He has a very small cameo. And if you watch this, there's a lot of people in this that you'll recognize. I mean, there's a lot of that guys and that girls, people you've seen 100 times in other things. Um, I think in this day and age, we're used to these kind of movies being like straight to video or with a bunch of people that no one's ever heard of. But back in the day, I mean, they'd people them with these actors who, were at least went on to bigger and better things. So again, C.H.U.D, cannibalistic humanoid underground dwellers. There's actually a second meaning to C.H.U.D, which I'm not going to give away. It's a major plot point in the story. So the mystery is solved. Um, what I want to do is I was thinking of different ways to end each episode. From now on, I'm going to pick a line that I think is the most interesting or funny or whatever from the movie I'm discussing, and that's how I'll end the show. Before I do that, I want to tell you next week we will be reviewing Tango and Cash, starring Sylvester Stallone and Kurt Russell. Yeah. So take this week, hunt it down, watch it, and we'll discuss it next week. Um, one more thing, C.H.U.D is available on Netflix, not instantly. Sadly, have to get it through the snail mail. But it was nice discussing C.H.U.D with you, and we'll discuss Tango Cash next week. The quote this week is, "Your guys have cameras, our guys have flamethrowers." There you go. Good times. Thank you very much for joining us, and we will talk to you again next week. Please Twitter any questions or comments to me, KD9575. I'm on Facebook, or you can subscribe on YouTube. Thank you very much.